yesterday. There was never, ever going to be a close finish. Adelaide versus Sydney. Adelaide, a few inside 50s early, looked like they were about the place, but then all Swans, just a remarkable performance. And considering that Jetta, Reid, LRT and perhaps Kurt Tippett to come back into this side, Tim, it is just an extraordinary outfit. 18 points lead at quarter time, 47 at half time, in the end 77 to the Swans.
And Reece Shaw's another player that can come back in, and he was such an important player across half back for them. But Adelaide, look, they got off to an OK start. There's Callan kicking goal, come back into the team, and the effort was there. There was no question about that, but they just couldn't score against this miserly defence and the way that they structure themselves up. You see Bolton there. Everybody does their job at the right time with the Sydney Swans. Dangerfield always looked like the most likely player for Adelaide, whether he was in the midfield or going forward, but obviously they didn't have enough of them. Jess White just rubbed salt into the wound of Adelaide losing their two forwards, Walker obviously and Tippett, who's gone to the Sydney Swans. He was very good early, and there's Tommy Mitchell, who I'll speak about in a little bit more detail. This bloke, Morton, had a couple of set shots and wasn't able to get the job done and decided to actually just make it a little bit more difficult for himself, although some AFL players would say that means it's a lot easier for yourself. But they just had all the answers, the Sydney Swans. Every time Adelaide looked like they were going to mount a challenge in some way, they were able to be shut down. The three things I learned about this game was that Sydney are well on track to win back-to-back flags. No question about that. The other thing I learned is that their defence is the best in the competition. When I say that, it's the best at defending once the ball gets into the opposition's attacking 50. It is so hard to score once you get there, and that is that Tommy Mitchell is going to be a gun. This kid can really play, had 31 possessions yesterday, and Spike, you know a fair bit about this kid, given he's been up and around the mark there for a couple of years at Sydney, and how highly they think of him.
Yeah, he's come straight into the club, and he's one of those players, as a young player, they haven't had to talk too much, and I mean that by he's come in, he does everything right, very professional. You reckon he's really clean, and his hardness has really stood out. So, real professional player for such a young player coming into his first year, or into his first game, sorry, and he's been sensational for him.
So I was wondering if you'd touch on some of the names that probably people in Melbourne don't really know much about, but they were goal kickers like White and Mitchell and these sort of types.
Well, that's the thing that I touched on before about they just do what they're supposed to do, Jimmy, and that's what great teams do. They come in, it's almost they've got these great interchangeable parts. They lose a bloke, another bloke comes in, he does his job. He doesn't do anything more than what is required of him. But the other thing, yesterday the forward line actually had a lot of opportunities because of the way they were turning the ball over and then how good they were at rebounding.
I think the Swans are a lot better this year because of their midfielders, and they've been kicking a lot of goals, haven't they? They've been outstanding all year.
Yeah, and they work hard too. I mean, if they have to work on an opponent, they'll work on an opponent, and then as soon as the ball breaks, they'll spread as hard as any side to that space. And they seem to do the right thing at the right time. They lower their eyes when they're supposed to lower their eyes, and they take the game on when they're supposed to take the game on. But even Bolton, you would have thought maybe 18 months ago this bloke was just about washed up, but he's still playing a really valuable role for them. 17 goals.
Remarkable.
Yeah. He's having just a remarkable season. I mean, Tim, when watching them yesterday, it was like they're down by about 5 or 6 points with a minute to go, but it was for 2 hours.
Yeah,
that's how they play.
Yeah, I haven't seen that level of football across 4 quarters that I saw from them yesterday. I've seen other sides play in spurts over the course of the year, Hawthorn and Geelong and Fremantle, and Collingwood at different times too. But I haven't seen that sustained 4-quarter effort that I saw from the Sydney Swans yesterday.
Only downside was Mummy's cheekbone. Jared Petrenko clash.
Yeah.
But they've got some tools perhaps waiting in the wings that can fill the void. As we said, Kurt Tippett's available from next week.
That's right. And, gee, what an option that is to have Kurt Tippett back into that side. And you got Mummy there, and he's a big, powerful brute of a ruckman. And I guess that's one of the unanswered questions here, though. When they're all available, when Kurt Tippett, because he plays that second ruck role, will they then play Mumford? Will they play Pike and Tippett all in the same side? Because they do start to look a little bit top-heavy.
You've got Reid as well.
And Reid to come back as well, yeah.
An honourable mention, Johnny Longmire had 3 jacks yesterday. Gary, Kieran and Brandon, who debuted yesterday. He was a sub, came on the last term.
You don't see that many at a bowling tournament, do you?
And I see very few in a poker hand. Marty Mattner, congratulations on a wonderful career. He was very good for Adelaide for a very long time. He played 98 for the Crows. He's a premiership player now for the Swans. And Richie Beno would be very, very proud. He retired with 222 games to his name, and he was a key part of the back 6, Jimmy, for the Swans.
Yeah, one of the toughest blokes to play on because of his height. He could defend taller players who were good overhead, but he actually had exceptional agility, speed, so he could play on the smaller blokes. And as Tim stated before, just played his role absolutely perfectly, and underrated how damaging he was with that left foot coming off the half-back line.
So well done to Brandon Jack on debut, well done to Marty Mattner on retirement. Dyson Heppel still to come. Simon says the season review. But right now,